When you're first starting out as a freelancer, the biggest thing you have to do is get clients. And this can be challenging. You don't have anything to show in a portfolio, and you can't count on word of mouth or recurring business because you don't have it yet. So what do? In this episode, I talk with Vanessa Bucceri, who shares about how she went about getting clients in the early days and the type of clients she works with today. We talk about how to acquire clients when you're just starting out, and then honing in on the ideal client, the ones you love to work with. We discuss red flags that may pop up before agreeing to work with a client and the possibility of needing to, yes, fire a client. Keep in mind, this is your business, and you get to choose who you work with and how you run your business. Working with the wrong client can be a real drag on your business and your motivation. Vanessa also shares the top 3 problems clients have that instigates them to come to her in the first place. Asking your clients what their top issues are will help you help them. Understanding what has caused those problems will also help you to find the right direction for the project. As I went through this conversation with Vanessa, I found myself not only thinking about my client's business, but also about my own. She gives a lot of great ideas for both. So here we go. Welcome to the Web Pro Savvy Podcast. This is your host, Kathy Servatka. S as in Sam, I-R, V as in Victor, A-T-K-A. Hi, Vanessa. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you give us a little background about yourself and your career and maybe what it is you're doing now?
Of course. Well, in school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't think a lot of people do, right? It takes some time to figure it out. So it was always this push and pull between doing something artistic versus the sciences. So I studied biology in university. That's what I have my degree in. But then I also studied interior design and I worked for some interior designers for a few years. And then I needed something to pay the bills and I ended up becoming an analyst of all things. And when my son was born, I was just really unhappy in my career. And somehow I stumbled upon a website for Skill Crush, which is an online coding school. And I'm like, oh, I was really intrigued. I'm like, that seems like a really good fit because they talk about visual design and coding at the same time. So I jumped into their first boot camp. And then 9 months later, I completed 3 of their modules and started doing websites for friends for free just to kind of see what it was like. And I really loved it. And so, I made a plan to leave my job, an exit strategy. And then in 2018, I gave in my notice. And since then, I've been running my own design studio where I do brand design and web design for clients.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. So how long have you been doing your business?
It'll be 5 years in January.
Oh, congratulations. Okay, that's a big milestone. Do you refer to yourself as a freelancer?
I don't. I do prefer the word designer. To me, I think it was more specific for what I enjoy doing. Even at the beginning, I found freelancer, maybe there's a bit of a connotation that it's more of like a generalist type of position. And I really wanted to be taken seriously. Part of what I enjoy doing is consulting with my clients, and I really want to be seen as an expert in my field. So I felt there was, I guess, more weight to being called a designer.
It's funny because, and I think I'm going to ask everybody all the time what they like to be called in that way, because I have a feeling the same as you about the word freelance, and yet I know people who make 6 and 7 figures who are freelancers. And it's just, I think it's maybe a holdover from our experiences, maybe when we worked for companies and how freelance, I'm putting quotes on that, freelance was thought of as opposed to being maybe, quote, professional, which that was kind of my hang up. But yours is more, I like the term designer. I think your clients probably like the term designer based on what I'm learning about you. So, speaking of clients, what type of clientele do you work with?
I work with a range of industries, but I would say that a lot of them are professional service providers. So, I mean, they range from photographers and people in the wedding industry, like event planners, all the way to right now I'm working with a cosmetic dentist. I've worked with like mortgage professionals, financial professionals, coaches, consultants, travel professionals. But a lot of the common thread there is a lot of them, they've been in their industry for a long time, or they really are ambitious and are striving to sort of be in the top of their field. And so they feel like they need that branding to separate themselves in the market. So yeah, I find a lot of them, even though their industries are varied, we share a lot of similar values, which is really cool. A lot of them are really hardworking. They're really knowledgeable. They really care about their reputation. They provide excellent customer service. As I said, they're ambitious and they want to be seen as, really professional in their industry. And that's why the branding focus really fits. And so we usually start with brand design and then we do their website for them.
I noticed on your website, which I'm going to jump over to right now, at the bottom, I think I'm on the services page. It says for big-hearted, graciously ambitious, and style-minded entrepreneurs. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I think so. Yeah, I've honed that a lot over the few years. When you're starting, you don't really kind of have a sense. But I think just after working with different types of people, you sort of learn who you work well with. And I think that is very much me as well. So I think I can relate to my clients in that way. And so when they come to me, I think that's where I talk about intuition a lot. Like I can intuitively know what they want. And I think that's because I'm very similar to my clients for a lot of the things that I value.
Okay. So would you say that's your niche? Clients that are like you, maybe?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
I mean, do you think of yourself as having a niche or no?
I do. Absolutely. I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So how would you describe your niche then? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, that's okay. I think that statement is very reflective. I think I approach my work with a lot of heart and a lot of commitment and a lot of pride, right? I take a lot of pride in my work. And I think my clients are very much the same. My grandpa ran his own business and he really instilled that hard work mentality. And so a lot of my clients, they really spend a lot of time in nurturing their business. It's really important to them. In many ways, it's who they are. So that's cool. And then in regards to niche, I would say definitely that service provider. I would say it's not so much the industry, it's definitely more the values. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can niche as a web designer, right? So I think for me, it's the type of clientele, it's the values that we share, these similar values. It's also a little bit of my aesthetic. A lot of them want that. It's a more like elevated look, a little bit more high-end, professional, well put together. Whereas some designers might niche by platform. So they might only work on certain, they might only be a WordPress web builder or a Squarespace designer is very common these days. And then some, you niche very specifically to industry. So you might be a designer for photographers or only build sites. I think in your case, you have an interesting niche, right?
With voice actors. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came about because I did training as a voice actor. So when I was working with a business coach and he was talking about niching down, as a lot of people say, and basically focusing on a certain clientele, his question was, if you had to go to their seminars or their webinars, or you had to stay with them for a weekend and listen to their talks, who could you stand listening to? Who would you enjoy listening to? And I was thinking about, photography because I had that kind of background and some other things. And then voiceovers popped into my mind. And I'm like, they have conferences and they're super fun people. So I did a little of a bit of a ship turning and went after them, went to some of their conferences, enjoyed the heck out of it. And so, yeah, that is what I focus on as my niche. That's not to say I don't do other types of websites. Do you find that you might step outside of your niche now and again?
I do. I think, right now I'm working with a baby clothing company, which has been really fun. I think it kind of comes down to sort of the values of the client. Again, if it's someone that I really connect with. And, sometimes it's good just for creative inspiration, just to do something a little bit different. So it's not that, I only work with certain people, but sometimes a fun project comes your way and you just can't say no, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the freedom that you have. It's your business. You're running it. You do what you want. Now with the baby clothing, is that an e-commerce website?
It is, yes.
Wow. Okay. So you do sometimes e-commerce. That's something I've always avoided.
It depends. If it's a WordPress e-commerce, I try to stay far away from it. Again, because I really do skew more to the design side of the industry. I'm not someone that custom builds my own themes. I'm not a coder. I tried to do that at the beginning. I was really trying to learn code, but I'm a visual person. I love the design part of the business. And then I discovered the world of web builders like the Squarespace, the Showits, the Wix, all the things that, companies are making it so easy these days for people to build websites. And so, that's why I really focus on the branding and the design side. And that's what attracts people to me.
Your design, when I look at your website, it feels feminine. It, like you said, it feels very put together. It's like calming. It's easy. It feels easy. It's easy to look at. It's just really quite lovely. Do you get mostly female clients?
I do. Thank you for the compliment. That's really sweet of you to say. Yes, it definitely is skewed female. And I think part of my brand is there still is a lot of inequality in the world. Coming from a corporate workplace of, over 10 years, that is something that's part of me, right? I think it's really important to uplift other women. And I think sometimes we maybe think too small, or we don't have enough confidence, or, a lot of the times, I'll put their image on there and they'll maybe feel a little bit embarrassed. Or recently I had a client and her writing was in first person, her copywriting. And she was like, oh, I don't know, Vanessa, it's all about me, me, me. Maybe I should switch it to third person. But the branding that what she's trying to build is something that, is very personal, and she's trying to build a connection with her clients. And so it just makes more sense to speak in the first person on her site, but it was like a confidence issue, right? So yes, for me, I love working with other women and really helping them shine. Really, that's, a big part of why I do what I do.
I find that to be true as well. And sometimes even with the male customers that I have, they become self-conscious all of a sudden if you want to put their bio photo in their website or if they write their own content. Sometimes I have my clients write their own content if they don't want to pay for a copywriter. And I'm like, where's all the pizzazz? Look at all these things you do. We need bigger words. It needs to be more exciting because that's who you are. But people feel funny when they talk about themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you have your clients work with a copywriter sometimes?
It depends on the budget. A lot of the times they'll start thinking that, I'll do it myself, but then, they'll get started or they'll get busy, or it's hard to write for yourself. I mean, even for me, I've written all my own copy, but it's really hard. It takes me a really long time. And so often it's just easier when there is the budget to bring in a copywriter, even if it's just for key pages, like the home page and the about page. and the services page, and the rest we can kind of figure out or use pieces and sprinkle it elsewhere. So if there's a budget, I do always recommend that. I honestly would even say over, on the website of things, I would almost rather allocate money to copywriting because that message is so important, rather than building something custom or something elaborate. I would rather scale back on the website of things and have them invest in a copywriter, because that's where they'll really get help sort of distilling their message and what their business is about and what value do they bring to the client and who are they trying to attract. So I think that's a really important piece. To create a great website, a lot goes into it. You need good photography, you need strong branding, you need good writing. And without those pieces, it's kind of like, what's the point of building the site if you don't have the foundation in place?
Oh, that's really good. I like that. And I agree with you. If I let a lot of my clients want to write their own content just because some of them just don't have the money. Some of the voice actors I work with, even this is their first website. They're just getting started. They don't have a budget. So I give them an outline, but it's not the same as working with a copywriter. And you are right. It is hard to write for yourself. And speaking of, being female and having trouble talking about yourself, and you and I also wrote my own content, and it's like pulling teeth. It's just so hard to write my own stuff. So I agree with that. Absolutely. In fact, I've thought about hiring a copywriter for myself, but I haven't, I just haven't done that yet.
I think for me, if I could sort of give one tip for that, really for anybody in business, is start collecting when you start collecting feedback from clients, save what they say, have a document going. If you get any compliments or any testimonials or someone, comments about you online, start saving how they're speaking about you and the words that they're saying. And then when you go to write copy for yourself, you pretty much just take what your clients say and insert it. And then what happens is it does a couple of things. It kind of gives you a starting point, so you're not staring at a blank page, but then also you're using the voice of your customer. So other clients are going to find it very relatable because they probably feel the same thing or, have a lot of the same hangups that, these people. So that's probably one of the best pieces of advice, because when I had to do my copy, I had 2-3 years of client feedback or just through questionnaires and communications and things that I'd done. And that was a great help.
Wow, that's really good. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure we can all benefit from that nugget.
Yeah.
We've really talked about your clients, but I want to focus in a little bit on your ideal client, because I know that you've talked about, we have the same values. We have the same aesthetic, that kind of thing. But are there certain clients that are better than others, maybe as far as working together, where maybe the aesthetic and the value isn't quite enough for a good relationship? Maybe I'm trying to say.
I think they definitely have to be invested in the process. So I think sometimes they'll come to me, or I'll get an inquiry where someone maybe just wants a logo or just a simple website, or and maybe they don't understand the value of marketing and branding and, having a cohesive message. So those clients are generally harder to work with. They're often wanting to rush through the process or skip things. So I would say, my ideal client would be really invested, probably already has some sort of understanding of marketing and the value of branding. The industry doesn't matter so much. I enjoy kind of dabbling in different industries. The platform, I also try to work on different types of web building platforms, although I'm finding now that I'm a few years in and I've got enough clientele that I really probably should start narrowing that down, just so that I can, be an expert in the applications that I'm using. Yeah, I mean, I think values and aesthetics is probably the main thing, and service professionals, and maybe something in like the home space. So I do attract a lot of interior designers. I attract just being in Vancouver. I'm from Vancouver, so here in the Lower Mainland, there's a lot of development, a lot of contractors, a lot of home builders. So I do attract a lot of people in sort of things related to home and also into real estate. So if I were to sort of say an industry, it would probably be something to do with that. But I think still the values and aesthetics is probably, the main thing.
Have you ever had to fire a client?
Fire? No, I haven't. Have you?
Yes. Just twice.
Oh my goodness.
Twice in my life. Well, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in the business 20 years, but usually what happens is it's kind of like opposite of what you just said. Like, we don't have things in common. Our communication is not easy. They're not getting what I'm trying to serve them. And sometimes I actually had one of the two was actually kind of mean to me. And I just thought, I don't need that.
No.
And I just, I didn't say you're fired, but I said, I don't think this relationship is working out. And I have a couple other names I can send you to. I think it's probably going to work out better for you. And the one person that was mean to me was fine with that. And another one was a woman early on. She started crying, and that's like a whole other thing. I felt really bad, but I still had to stick my ground. We just did not work well together. And for all the clients I've had, those are the only two that I've had to, it was just better for both of us. I wasn't giving them what they wanted, and they were making my days kind of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I hope you never have to.
I have, though, speaking of firing clients, I haven't necessarily fired them, but I have turned down contracts or opportunities. So, sometimes during the consultation process, there can be red flags, or during onboarding, like maybe you'll agree to move forward. And then there have been situations where things have come up. And so I've actually walked away from projects, but it's been before, money has been exchanged or anything has been confirmed.
Yeah, I've had that too. For me, it's kind of a spidey sense thing at this point, where I've worked with enough people that I start to get sort of a feeling like we're almost like talking past each other or something like that. When that's happened to you, was it a feeling, or was it something specific somebody said, or the way they run their business maybe?
Yeah, I think it's been both. So, I mean, some of the specific examples, there was one really great project I was thrilled to be a part of. But, when I sent over my package, well, even before that, I'd say the onboarding, it just took so long. It was like a week before I would hear, and then another week, and then another week. And it's like, when it's taking that long, you kind of know that they're not really bought in. And like, just then imagine how it's going to be communicating with them once you are actually working on a project. I mean, that beginning phase, they should be so excited to get started that, they're emailing you back right away, and they really want to, begin the process. And so when they're dragging their heels and things are just slow, that's not a good sign. And then after that, I sent her my contract, and she had a lawyer look at it, and then sent it back to me, and it was all marked up with all of these revisions and things that they wanted changed.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, it was a big job too. I really wanted to make it happen. So I sat with that for 2 or 3 days. I was like, Nino, like my husband, his name is Nino, and in a conversation with him, I'm like, what should we do? Like, I really want to move forward with this. It would be great for my portfolio. But I was just really concerned that that was just a boundary I wasn't able to or willing to, extend. For me, my contract and a lot of the things in my contract are in place because of the experience I've had working with clients over the years, and things have happened. So you add clauses in, right, to protect yourself. So that was one client that I turned down. That was hard to say no to, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I can feel the pull you would have with such a super job that you really, really want. And yet equal and opposite is this marked up contract in front of you. And like you said, mine too. My contract has a few very specific things in it because those things have happened. And, contracts are negotiable. If somebody wanted to change a word or two, I've never had anybody change my contract though. So that was bold on their part.
It was shocking. Well, and even to pay your lawyer, it was like, wow. That's
yeah,
crazy.
I've never had anyone go to their lawyer about a web contract. Wow. Well, it must have been a big project.
It was, yes. I probably shouldn't give specifics, just in case you never know who's listening. But it was disappointing, but that's okay.
No, we don't want specifics. But yeah, I mean, shoot. I guess that's just the way it goes. And
that's right.
You can take these jobs, there's people out there that will spend their money on you and you can work with them, but it could be miserable. And I think at that point, it's not worth all the money.
That's right. It's really a trade-up, right? Or a trade-off. But yeah, if there's vibes or, your intuition is telling you right off the get-go, like you really should be saying yes to the things that excite you. And so that's now what I try to do. I mean, I'm in the position where if a job comes that's really not exciting or I'm just not getting a good vibe, I would rather wait for something better. And usually in my experience, it does come along, right?
I think that's the scary thing because we don't know. Sometimes we might doubt if something's around the corner to take its place.
Yes.
And that can be scary. When you're working for yourself, it's very scary.
Thank you.
Well, I know I've talked to people who still take those clients on and I hear the things they talk about that they're dealing with. And my head wants to explode because I just would never do that now. But I mean, I can say that now with experience under my belt. But when people are new and, like you said, you started out doing jobs for free and just trying to get the experience. And then when you're actually first getting paid, you kind of want to take anything that comes your way. And that's actually one of the people that I fired was one of those early on. It was the woman. It was early on. And she wanted print work and all this stuff that I'm like, this is not what I do. Anybody who knows web and print knows they are completely different. Yeah. And I don't like print. I have print people.
If I have to change the color profile, I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to do anything in CMYK and bleeds and all of it. No, thank you.
It's a whole other animal. And so, that's really more what it was, just that conflict. But, I had tried to make it work with her and it was just, it was becoming too much. It was just why I had to stop and think, why am I doing this? This is not good. She's not happy. I'm not happy.
Yeah, that's right. I worked with a coach a couple of years back when I was feeling sort of stuck, still sort of in that cycle of saying pretty much yes to every job because you're worried about that famine, right? Or those valleys where you're not getting any inquiries. So saying yes to pretty much everything. And what she said to me, and I'll kind of never forget this, is, that first level of business success, you do have to say yes to everything because you're just starting out. But then that second level is then starting to say no to only the things that really excite you. And then because hopefully enough opportunities will come that you can be a little bit more selective. And I think just sort of circling back to sort of how we've been talking a lot about branding. For me, when I started, a lot of, I think I did have a good sense of who I wanted to attract. And so it was putting out the work that I wanted to get more of. So, and then by doing that, if you're only showcasing in your portfolio the work that you want to get more of, those are the types of people that you're going to attract back. And so over time, it's like it feeds itself, right? And the ball just gets bigger and bigger. And then, then your marketing becomes really easy because people see your work on your social media, on your website, and they're like, yes, she can do that for me. So I want to work with her.
So you're really living out what you're doing for your customers because your website really says who you work with. It says it by the look of it. It says it by the wording and the photos and all of that. And that's what you're talking about. If you have to, and this goes along always, we always try to make the website not for the person who owns the business, but for their clients, for their customers.
Exactly.
Who do they want to attract? And so that's interesting. So you've done that very well with your own website to attract the kind of clients that you now can enjoy after doing, paying our dues, I guess, in the early days.
Absolutely. And I mean, at the beginning, that was, again, yes, it was, a couple of free projects for friends who were the exact type of clients that I kind of dreamed of working with. And I mean, I know a lot of designers will also do, case studies or projects that aren't for clients just so that they can sort of put something in their portfolio or show something on social media. And again, once someone can see that you can do something, then they'll want to work with you. So if you want to work with like a wine company and, show that or do like a case study, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be the actual website. You could do a mock-up of a website. And I mean, even for me at one point, I tried selling website templates. And I know you and I chatted about this before.
Yes. Yeah.
Before this conversation, I launched a shop. And really, the reason I launched it is because I was in this slow season. I wasn't getting work. I was like, well, why don't I just create to create? And so I decided to build these templates. And, one was for an interior designer. One was all pink and orange, which was very, female influencer type person. And one was for like a wedding professional because I do love working with the Show It platform. And it was sort of geared towards wedding professionals. And I posted those and I use those in my social media as sort of an example of the type of work. It wasn't so much that I was hoping to generate revenue from it. I mean, I did it all properly, but it served really well to actually bring clients to my business because they saw those templates and it was the work I wanted to attract.
So when they saw those templates, but they didn't want to use that template, they wanted you to create something just for them. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I've had a couple of people who've used the templates. They haven't been huge sales generators. I'm going to take them down, but yeah, no, the at least the aesthetic has kind of been really good for marketing, a few years ago when I was just getting started.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny because, as you said, we talked about that before. I had actually spent some time creating templates, and I never even got to the point of putting them up.
Yeah.
I just started second guessing myself, and I still have them. I might do something with them, but I hear it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good example. Not everything that you try is going to work. For me, that was probably like my biggest flop so far, trying to do that. But I mean, there was still value in it, right? Even though it was probably not a success, it still helped me attract my target client. And then that generated, custom projects.
Yes, that's not such a bad flop.
Yeah,
actually, you got your clients. I mean, that's even better, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that idea. So just basically creating things probably that were super fun for you to design and put those out there as examples. If nothing else, sure, they could get the template if they wanted, but here's what I can do. Like you said, these are the fun things that I like. This, it was probably fun to design those, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got down your clients, how you come to get your clients, and how much you enjoy working with them. Now, with the clients that do come to you that you do want to work with, what would you say are the top 3 problems that they come to you with? The reason they're coming to you in the first place to get a website, what are their complaints or what are their needs that they're expressing when they come to you?
Yeah. Usually it's usually around vision. So it's either they know exactly what they want. They have this vision in their head, but they can't translate it to what that would look like in design, or they don't have the skills or expertise to create it for themselves. So they can't execute on, like, they have the vision, but they can't execute on it. And so they're looking to me to do that. Or they don't have the vision, but they really want something unique and beautiful. And they know how they want it to feel, like maybe warm, inviting. They have the adjectives, but they don't know what a design that's warm and inviting would look like. So they need me to take those adjectives and show them, okay, well, this color, these fonts, this type of style of imagery, this brand voice, this will create what you're looking for. So I would almost say those are the two. If I were to add a third, but it could still be distilled down to one of those, is that they're just embarrassed by what they have. But that's still a vision thing, right? Mm-hmm. They know that their work and the quality of what they do is better than what they have, and they've just grown out of it. Or maybe they started DIYing and now they're just at a different level where their DIY site doesn't meet their standards anymore. But again, that's vision, right? They want something, and then they either can't execute on their vision or they just don't know what they want.
Okay. Do they ever say, I'm not getting any clients from my website? And that's what I hear a lot. They
do. Yeah. Clients, or, they might want to rank better, or they might, like in Google, or they might feel it's not being like utilized properly. Like they're not maximizing the pages and the structure of it, or like it's not user friendly. So yes, I do get those sorts of things as well. But usually it's, I don't know what I want, or I know what I want and I just don't know how to pull it all together.
I don't know what I want, but I'll know it when I see it.
That's right.
But that's what they pay you for. And you're very good at what you do. Okay. So as a professional, what do you see as the top causes for your clients' problems?
I think a lot of them don't have a good sense of their brand. I think a lot of it, like a lot of the decisions, the qualities that we talk about, that comes down to what your values are as a company, who your ideal client is, what are their problems, how are you unique in the market? And those are really hard questions that require a lot of deep thought. And so the first part of my branding process before we touch website is to talk about those things. We excavate what their values are. We do that work. We define who their clients are, what their problems are, and how their business is uniquely designed to meet those needs, right? And I think that's really hard for people. I mean, it's hard for me to do it for myself. And a lot of my clients, they've been in business, many years. Like recently this week, I was working with someone. She's been in business same amount as me, 5 years. And, I presented her this document with all of this strategy. And she's like, wow. She's like, I've never looked at my business this way before. She's like, you're making me fall back in love with the work that I do and reigniting that purpose. Right. And I'm like, wow, that's
how gratifying.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's really deep. And so I think that's really hard to do for yourself. And that's probably the biggest challenge. Yeah.
I would agree. Do you find that they're surprised when you try to get them to dig into these core aspects of their business, like their core beliefs, who their ideal client is, those kinds of things?
They're hard.
They're hard questions, aren't they? Yeah.
They are. And so it depends on the client. It depends on their comfortability with technology, but I'll usually do some sort of a discovery questionnaire and or an interview. Sometimes it's just one, sometimes it's just an interview, sometimes it's both. And so we talk through a lot of those things. And then they sort of just, consciousness, what's top of mind, what they can think of. And then I like to prompt with some fun questions too. Like, if you hired a celebrity influencer for your brand, who would you pick? Like,
oh, that's fun.
Would it be a Kardashian? Would it be like Hillary Clinton? I don't know. Like, who would it be? Right. And then just from that, I mean, those are two very different people. and then right away you can start to say, okay, so those are different qualities. Like I can, as a designer, I can visually picture what a website for Hillary Clinton would look like versus a Kim Kardashian. And so just by getting them to think about their brand as almost like a personality or like a piece of music or like an interior, like what would your dining room look like? Is it formal? Do you have chandeliers? Like, is there crystal? Is there jazz playing or, maybe it's Taylor Swift and so by sort of asking them these kind of questions, I can distill it and I can get a sense of those qualities that we want the website to reflect in the end.
That is so cool. I that actually sounds like a fun exercise. It sounds like you've taken something that's kind of a chore for somebody to pull out, and you've made it super fun by asking these, well, if you could do this, would it be this or this?
Yeah.
And putting out these fun examples for them. How long would you say a conversation like that would last?
It's usually about an hour and a half. Sometimes they're long conversations. The questionnaire is kind of nice, because then they can reflect on things, over time. So maybe I'll give them a week to fill it out and then they can, as ideas come up, these are prompts, as I say, like they're just prompts to get you thinking about things. You don't have to have answers to all of them, but just sort of anything they can think of really just helps me, again, just get to what that vision is and those qualities that we want the website to reflect.
Oh, that's super fun. I like that. I like that conversation. Okay, so as a follow-up, then what is the number one thing people are doing wrong with their branding?
I would have to say probably consistency. I mean, because even if you haven't worked with a designer, you still have a brand. So everything you say, everything you write, any social media content, your website, your logo, every touch point, that all communicates a message and it all sort of makes up your identity as a business. What's your customer service experience like? What's your visual identity like? Like this all creates a brand. And so I think if there isn't consistency, like if I go on your website and it looks one way, but then I go on your Instagram and it's completely different type of imagery, the colors are completely different, and then I email you and then the way you write back is like, again, the words don't match up, or the way you're talking, the way you sound doesn't match up. Then there's a disconnect. And then it's like, well, who are you really? And then it's like, well, can I trust to work with you? Because I really don't know what I'm going to get, because everywhere I go to find out about you, it's different. And, branding is about building trust with your clients. So that consistency is so important, because it can take sometimes 10 touch points, with your company for someone to actually trust you. And so if all those touch points are different, they're just not going to feel connected to your business. They're going to be confused, and that's just not a good sign. So I would say consistency and mixed messaging is probably the biggest thing.
The number one thing. I think people don't realize how all that, I don't think that, well, it comes down to understanding brand, and that everything needs to be, as like on brand. Mm-hmm. And they don't see everything as a connection. Like you said, everything needs to be cohesive and saying the same message. And I don't think people look at like their Instagram as having anything to do with how their website looks.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to think none of those things exist in a vacuum, right? Like, or if someone's looking at your business, they're also looking at your competitor's business. Like, what do those things look like side by side, right? That context is so important. So, I mean, even just as a quick check, right? Pull up your website, maybe 1 or 2 pages, pull up your Instagram, pull up your Facebook or wherever you show up on social, and just visually compare, like, does this look like the same business? Is my profile picture the same everywhere? Those little things make a huge difference.
Oh, I love that. That's really good and easy. I like easy.
Good.
I think most people like easy. It's the easy. She's the easy button. I also noticed on your website you have a brand quiz, and I took it, and I thought that was really fun. And it kind of went along the lines of the conversation you said you have with clients. Would it be Hillary Clinton or would it be a Kardashian, blah, blah, blah. It was along those lines. And I loved my results, and I can't remember. It had a title. And then it had all these cool colors and words. And just from answering the survey, it came up with this, or you came up with this, kind of a brand for me. And I thought that, and it included, I think, fonts, and that was super cool. Do you find a lot of people filling that out?
Thank you. Well, it's been the most effective thing I've tried so far. I think at the beginning I tried like freebies and, downloads. And yeah, I mean, I would very rarely ever get anything. I think this has been the most consistent thing, where every week I do get. I mean, it might just be one or two, but to me, that's okay. I'm not really using my email list for much at the moment. I'm not advertising it, but I think why quizzes work so well is because we're all innately about ourselves, right? And a little selfish. And I think a quiz is really cool because it teaches us something about ourselves based on our answers. And so everyone wants to know, like, what would my brand style be? Like, they're curious and it's personalized. So I think that's why it works really well. And the other reason why I chose the topic that I did is because, and I can't remember where I read this, but just something about, using whatever that first part of your process is, so that people can kind of get a taste of what it could be like. So, and that is exactly the first thing I do, right? It's that discovery. What qualities are we trying to define through your brand? And then how could we create visuals from it? And so this is really a taste of what that full branding process is like, is by taking this quiz.
That is super cool. And it also it's all along the lines of your branding, and the questions and the answers, the optional answers you can select all fall in line with the type of client that you're trying to get. Like you didn't have anything about car racing. Or anything like that.
No. And I'll have to say too, some of the questions are specifically designed for me to understand who's even coming to my website. Like I think there's some about like, how long have you been in business? So am I attracting people that are brand new? And then in which case do I need to talk about getting started? Or are they people that have been a few years and are trying to grow? So then I should be focusing on that. So some of the questions in there are strategic. It's a strategic way of surveying your audience, but not people, they don't know necessarily or feel like they're being surveyed. So it's been really good in that regard. I just need to get the volume up, the amount of people that are using it. But like I said, it hasn't been a focus. But I think as I get to a point where one-on-one services are kind of maxed out for me, what's that next stage of growth as a design studio? Like, and then an email list, if you are thinking about launching a product or a productized service or something else, then that's where the email list is really valuable. So that's why I've started it and just slowly sort of working on building it up.
And that's why I can see too, like with the questions you said, are these people, have they been in business already for a long time? Or are they just starting out? Because then in your email list, when you do start working with it, you can create journeys. MailChimp calls it journeys, but you can create different, like, for this group of people who are just starting, I can send them a list of emails. I'm running out of words here. A series of emails for them, just for them, as opposed to the people who've been in business for a while. Maybe you've had a brand that's not working for them. Then you start speaking to them. So I think it's an amazing idea. It's a great tool, I would think. Like you said, if nothing else, you understand who's coming to your site. And I think that's important.
Absolutely. And so for now, I don't really do much with it. I do send out like a bi-weekly newsletter where, I talk about a topic related to branding web design, something that's, maybe it's something from the news or something that's going on, and I'll somehow relate it to small business ownership, and then, maybe feature, a recent launch. And again, it's just to keep me top of mind, because I haven't booked a lot of projects through that quiz. I've gotten inquiries, but it's more, again, just to nurture that audience. And yeah, everyone says grow your list. So I'm trying to grow my list.
Grow your list, even if you don't know what you're doing with it yet. Like you said, you're not using it yet, but grow your list. Don't give up those opportunities.
That's right.
Well, this has been a pleasure. So if somebody wants to find you, can you tell us, first of all, what your web address is and maybe your Facebook?
It is my
Instagram, that kind. Yeah.
Yes. My website is my name. So vanessabucceri.com. And on Instagram, I think it's vanessa.bucceri. So that's my main sort of social media. And I have been playing around a lot with Twitter and just sort of writing a lot about branding and web design on there, on and off. So it's definitely not consistent. But those are probably the 3 places that I show up online the most.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. This has been a real pleasure and an eye-opener. I have learned some things from you. So thank you for that.
Aw, thanks, Kathy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.